Just because we're dealing with a pandemic does not mean states will not compete. They'll compete. We had states competing for masks and ventilators. They're going to compete for sports. UFC is going to fight. They don't care what you think in California. They went to Florida. So Notre Dame's athletic director yesterday, he's got a lot of power, and he said, you know what? I'm not sure what's going to happen, but some conferences may go, some may not. Some teams within conferences may not, some may go, but we're probably going to have a season.
I can't say enough about the extent to which they're working closely together, spending time together, communicating with each other. And I think that's the most important thing. It gives us a chance to come up with an overarching policy and an ability to start together. Having said that, I think we all recognize that there is a significant chance that may not be possible, that either because states or individual colleges and universities take different approaches, you can't produce a season where all members are participating in Division I football in the same way.
Yes, the SEC, and I've stayed away from predictions, the SEC is going to have a college football season. Period. That's my one prediction. Joy's been here. I've said, only thing I know about this thing, social distancing does appear to work. I don't know anything else. But I'm going to and I've stayed away from guessing if leagues are going to start or not. I think it's ridiculous when you've got people predicting in May, the first week, what's going to happen in the third week in September. As I said before, you watch a local weather forecast, if they go past 4 or 5 days, the accuracy falls off the table. They have radar. How do I know what's going to happen in September? Do we get medicines? Do we get a vaccine? They're fast-tracked. I don't know. I don't even think epidemiologists agree on half of this stuff from what I read. But I'll make one prediction. The SEC, it matters more in the South. That's their slogan. They're going to have a season. I don't know about the Pac-12, but why should the SEC have to wait for the Pac-12? Even within conferences like the Big Ten, Rutgers and New Jersey, they've been hit hard by the virus. Nebraska, not so much. Nebraska's like, we're all in. It's a recruiting advantage. I know, it's unseemly, right? Competition. But we competed for business post 9/11, and you're going to compete during the virus for business. States will compete. Florida's opened up. Let's go. Southern governors, mostly conservative. Let's go. California, Pac-12, I don't even think you get much pushback. I think Southern states will pull away from the rest of the country in college football like they haven't already. They'll tell recruits, we play. We're going to play. And so, and am I comfortable with it? Listen, I can watch New York and be horrified by it, but I also live in a coastal city in California, 36,000 people. We've had one death. I don't know anybody that has it. I don't know anybody that knows anybody that's had it. So our life is different right now from the difficulty and the situation in other parts of the country. Not everybody's living through this thing similarly. Utah and Wyoming are different than New York and New Jersey and Michigan. So, but when I hear this about college football, my takeaway on all this is it's going to be uneven. 130 college football programs. Some are big state schools, some are private academies, some are small schools, some love football, some like Duke or basketball schools. 130 programs, I think 80 potentially could play. 80, that's it. 80. And I'll watch every single game that's on TV. So during the virus, not everybody is suffering through it the same kind of intensity. They're just not. And the second thing is states compete. God, they were competing for ventilators. And as gross and uncomfortable as that is, they're going to compete for football. You know it, and I know it. They're going to compete on this stuff. So, it was interesting. The Notre Dame athletic director said, listen, we may have conferences that play and conferences that don't. I look at the Big Ten, Urban, and I think Rutgers is in Jersey. Maybe they can't play. Nebraska maybe looks at their infection rate and says, yeah, we're going to play. Could you see a conference literally like a Big Ten not having every school involved in a season?
I actually could. I don't, everyone hopes that doesn't happen, but you need college football. And there's certain, it's going to be a state by state. And I'm real intrigued to hear how they move forward with this, where, say the SEC, obviously that's top to bottom, the strongest conference in America, and you take them that really have areas that have not been hammered by the virus, and they want to go play football. Boy, it'd be hard to say don't play. Matter of fact, I can't imagine that scenario. So it's going to be a state by state. It's going to be a team by team, conference by conference, I think, as this thing moves forward. And I've actually listened to a few phone calls about that, and I would believe that there's a chance that would happen.
By the way, if a Rutgers couldn't play, don't they share revenue anyway, like bowl revenue? So they would be assisted at some level, right?
Oh, you'd have to imagine that would happen. I have not heard that, and to be honest with you, I haven't even thought about that, but certainly that would wipe out if you're not part of that revenue sharing, and a Rutgers or really anybody that counts on those resources, not just for football, but for other sports, that could wipe out an athletic department. So, yeah, I would imagine that would be part of it.
Urban Meyer joining us. I've said recently, Mel Kiper came out and said Joe Burrow is a better prospect than Trevor Lawrence. And I said, boy, that feels like a lot of recency bias to me. Is that there's some things about Joe Burrow I love, but I do think he's been a little bit of a one-hit wonder. And is that a fair criticism where, everything works for a season? You got a really good team, a really good offensive line, it just kind of the schedule works or whatever. Do you think that's a fair concern about Joe Burrow that, he was in college for a long time and he didn't even pop until the last year and the second year at LSU?
Yeah, Colin, I don't believe that's criticism. I think that's factual. He a one-hit wonder. I mean, that's better than a no-hit wonder. I mean, he had arguably the best season in the history of college football. Yes, he was on a great team, but you can't, when you really study his film of the throws he made, that wasn't a bunch of wide-open guys now. He placed that ball, he scrambled, he kept plays alive. So, yeah, it was a one-hit wonder. He's a little bit later developing, but I don't look at that as concern. That's factual. Trevor Lawrence has had a 3-year, his freshman, sophomore, and to be his junior year. He's had, if he puts together a year, that's a 3-hit or 3 years. So there is risk involved. And I would say this about Joe: if it wasn't what happened, it would be a major risk. But reality is, he had arguably the greatest season in history a quarterback's ever had. And that overrules the fact that he only did it for 1 year. So there is a risk involved, and I didn't see Mel Kiper's list, but if Trevor Lawrence has a big time year, which I imagine he will, it'd be hard not to say that he's right there with Joe Burrow, or maybe better. We'll see what happens.
Jarrett Stidham, according to a report this morning, New England's all in on Jarrett Stidham. If I recall, you recruited Jarrett Stidham, did you not?
We did. He's out of Stevensville, Texas, one of the best high school programs in America. We didn't get real far with him. I can't recall exactly what happened, but I remember watching his high school film. Very high on him. He started off at Baylor and went to Auburn. The one thing, as I have said many times here in the last couple of weeks, the common denominator of every great quarterback, he's on a great team. The great quarterbacks who go to bad teams all of a sudden become bad quarterbacks. And it's hard for me at times to understand the media and often the fans. They have a bad team, so it's the quarterback's fault. And you look around, and it happened at Alex Smith his first few years in New England or at San Francisco. So I think Jarrett Stidham, he put him with Bill Belichick, Josh McDaniel, that system. I think get ready for I can't say he's going to be the next Tom Brady, but get ready. I'm sure he'll have a great. He did it with Matt Castle. He did it, obviously, with Tom Brady and, the quarterback at the 49ers.
Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, Garoppolo. I mean, they're gonna make that quarterback a good player.
So we talk about first-round wide receivers over the last 5 years. There's been 3 times as many busts as hits. And so, you look at the first round, and we know some of these guys are not going to work. The name that keeps coming up from my people is Isaiah Simmons. Arizona took him. And he's obviously a tremendous athlete. But do you think he would be a hard guy to coach because he's Derwin James, but not that good a safety? He's Honey Badger, but is he that instinctive? What is Isaiah Simmons as a pro?
Well, I stood on the field and watched him. I also was sat in some meetings as Ohio State got ready to play him, and he's the all-purpose guy. It matters. I think he's a great talent. I think how they use him is going to be key. And everyone looks for, I saw the Saints having the conversation about the Stevens and the hybrid player that can do multiple things for you. We would always look for that Percy Harvin or a multiple position player that gives you great flexibility, that he can go play a outside linebacker, play safety, who knows, could play a nickel. And I just think he's a great talent, and how they use him is going to be key. Can he play every snap as a deep middle safety? That remains to be seen, because Clemson did do that with him.
Yeah. There's another guy in the first round, Damon Arnett, cornerback, Ohio State. There was a report a couple teams didn't have him on the board, character issues. What do we know about those character issues?
I know it all. It was more maturity issues. We always felt like he went to St. Thomas Aquinas, one of the best high school programs in America. He had some of that, stuff in him that we had to get out of him, and he had maturity issues. He's without doubt first-round talent, because he fits right in with those 6 or 7 first-round corners that came out of Ohio State. He was just behind mentally. He was behind maturity-wise. I think the key to him was what kind of coach, position coach, not head coach, what kind of position coach and what kind of room do you put Damon in. If Damon's in, you have a Malcolm Jenkins type player, just a grown man and a bunch of people that, a bunch of athletes and players and a real strong position coach, I think he's going to thrive. You put him in a situation where that's not the case, there are concerns. I love Damon, but there are concerns.
September 3rd or 4th, Labor Day weekend's the start of college football. How many weeks minimum would you need to get your guys ready?
I've actually had some conversations, and the number that keeps coming up is 6 weeks. Football, you have safety issues involved, and 6 weeks, which puts you around that July 16th number, that gives you time to get a team ready. And that's the conditioning, that's the football is such a complex game, but the most important thing is the health and safety, because, a lot of these places, majority of them are going to, deal with 80, 90-degree heat. To get those kids used to running, they have to be on the move. 6 weeks out is kind of a number that we've come up with.
It's interesting. I thought about this college football season being in the spring, and I thought, who maybe wouldn't want a college football season in the spring is an Ohio State, a Notre Dame, SEC, Clemson, because you have the most pro NFL players. And I could see some kids saying, I'm not playing in February or March because if I get hurt, I can't get physically right for the combine. So what do you think about these suggestions of moving it to the spring? I think if I was Ohio State's coach and I got 9 NFL guys, some guys may not want to play if the season goes to late March, right?
I agree with you 100%. If that happens, the majority of college football, I think, would be, once again, it's hard to just visualize that, too, how that works. You have college basketball going on, and then you have fast turnaround, you have spring, you have kids that have to declare for the draft, kids that are graduating early that would have to now be eligible to get into grad school. There's so many hoops to jump, but what you just said that's not maybe, that's a fact. If you're a potential high draft pick, will you really go put on shoulder pads and a helmet and play college football in January or February? I would say no.
Urban, USC changed their defensive staff. It got younger, and they've had a very good last month in recruiting. Very good. After a couple of very weak recruiting years. And it's interesting. I've had some friends, and they're saying, well, what's going on down there? And I said, they just got younger. And I don't know how good the coaches are, but they're really good recruiters. And when you were selecting a staff, would you have guys that you thought were B coaches, but A recruiters, and then mix that with some A coaches and maybe B recruiters? Is it a balance, or did recruiting matter with every coach?
I think when you're at schools where you can't pay or pay the market value of an elite recruiter / coach, but the Ohio States, the USCs, the Texas, the SEC, the Clemsons, you should be able to. You know, I certainly, you know, when I was at Utah, you just could not hire the all-purpose coach. At Ohio State, I never, absolutely not. If you better be, it's very easy. Are you the best recruiter at your position in America? If not, then we got a problem. We got to get this thing fixed.
Wow.
So we were all over that. When you have to, but you're also paying them hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I think, you know, I would be shocked at the upper 15 schools in America that say we would accept that, because I don't know how you. Then you're probably not winning. You know, recruiting. Every conversation in college football starts with recruiting and it ends with recruiting. Everything else inside is important, but the recruiting piece is it. And then you can see who's going to continue winning. All you have to do is watch who they're recruiting.
Yeah. Good talking to you, Coach. You are your beaches open in Sarasota?
Yeah, they're open now, and I know you spent time in Naples. And
oh, love it.
I'll tell you what, man. I've never spent more than 4 days down here, and this is really beautiful area.
Yes, it is, Coach, especially when the beaches are open. Yes, it is. Urban Meyer, good talking to you, Coach.